Let's talk about how you can create an AI sales assistant for each of the individual salespeople that you invite to your team inside of Pitchit. Now, if you're here, that means that you're probably the manager or the person who's in charge of essentially sending invites out to all your team. And so the first place you'll want to go is to the Manage Team section, right? And there's a couple of features in here that we'll run through. First and foremost, you're going to want to go to this section and actually type in the email address of who you're going to invite to Pitchit. And so for this one, let's do a made-up email that I set up, pitchitdemo1@gmail.com, right? This is the user that we're going to use today. So I'm going to go ahead and invite this person. Then I'm going to open up the email, assuming that I'm this rep, and there should be an invite waiting, right? And so it says you're invited to the team on Pitchit. Click accept invite, and then they're going to be taken to essentially their setup wizard. And so this is different than the manager's view, where you have access to every single person's account and all of the settings. This individual rep is only going to have access to what's assigned to them. And so I'm going to go ahead and assign the Gmail account pitchitdemo1@gmail.com as the identity for this account. I'm going to tick all the boxes and start working on setting up my account. Okay, and so once I get past the Gmail authentication, it's going to actually ask me to set up my AI sales assistant account. And so this is where the individual team member, the individual salesperson, can create their own AI sales assistant. Now they can use their own identities. They could do like Kleen, or they can use like an AI assistant's name. So you can say like Jane Doe, right? That's totally up to each of your reps on how they position themselves. If you're going to use an AI assistant that's supposed to replicate your work, you can use your own name. If you're okay with using like an alias like Jane Doe, also totally fine from our point of view. In the next step, it's going to ask you to create a secret password. For the purposes of this, I'm just going to make one up. So let's just do a really quick made up password and move on. The next one, and this is kind of an important one, they're going to have to create a calendar. Now, this calendar is not for the individual salesperson to take these calls themselves, okay? Remember, they're creating an AI sales assistant for themselves. And so your Gmail or your Outlook account comes with a free calendar, and that's probably the one they're going to want to hook up. But if it's not, like for example, if this AI sales assistant should not use the same Gmail as the one that sales rep owns, that's totally fine. You can have paul@pitchit.ai be a sales rep, and then you can have pitchitdemo1@gmail.com be the AI sales assistant representing him. And so you might select the demo calendar instead of the Paul calendar because you want the meetings to be booked on the AI assistant's calendar. And that's completely fine. So that's the use case we're going to do today. We're going to assume that a sales rep doesn't want to take all these meetings manually themselves, and they don't want to handle all the replies either. So the AI assistant's going to represent that sales rep. It's going to send all the messages out from Pitchit Demo 1. It's going to book meetings on Pitchit Demo 1's calendar. It's going to outbound dial them if a meeting gets booked, and then it's going to ask them the pre-screen questions necessary, and then finally route them, transfer that call to Paul Kleen, the actual sales rep, the real human being, right? And so that's how I'm setting up this account, is the AI sales assistant has its own fake calendar that all these meetings get booked onto. And so that's how I'm going to do it. There are some other ways of doing it, but for today's demo, I'm assuming that you're the manager and you're trying to create AI sales assistants for humans, and this is the best practice for doing so, right? And so now that we've created the account, what you can see is Jane Doe is missing some of the tabs that the sales manager had and can't see them, right? And that's by design. They can only see workflow and broadcast campaigns that they created. They can only see pitch copy that is either created by them or shared with them, and we'll get into how to share it with teams on a different video. They can only see audiences that are in campaigns they've used, broadcast or workflow, or audiences that were shared with them. And they can only see comments, messages, and replies that came from campaigns they launched. And so that's the first piece, is the data is being shared only as it pertains to this AI sales assistant. Inside of the identity section, the AI sales assistant is using basically an alias Gmail and alias calendar. And then under the connections section, it's using that same alias to send out the messages. There are other ways that you can add additional emails for each of your AI sales assistants, and we have a video called Inbox Rotation where we show you how to step-by-step connect more accounts inside of each one AI sales assistant's profile for Pitchit. But long story short, this is now set up and Jane Doe is good to go, and Jane Doe can represent Jane Doe or it can represent Paul Kleen or whoever else you want to basically assign them to. Now, let's get back to the manager's profile real quick and get a quick peek at some of the things you can control as the manager of this person. So I'm going to go back to my account, the manager, and I'm going to show you some of the new tabs again that I can see that Jane Doe can't, okay? So let's assume you now have Jane Doe, and somewhere in this list, yep, there she is. It says that she's active as of January 15, right? And what you want to do, let's just role play. Maybe you want to add Jane Doe to a special team, right? And so let's call this Team X, right? And so you could do this like enterprise sales, consumer sales, SMB sales. You could call it key accounts. I'm sure you have different ways of grouping salespeople. And so once you create the group, you basically just find all the people that you want to add to it. And in this case, we're going to add Jane Doe, okay? So Jane Doe has now been added to Team X. She's the only member just for the purposes of this demo. And then let's start assigning things to Jane Doe. Okay, and so I'm going to show you how you can basically share a pitch copy or a template with Jane Doe. Now, Jane Doe has been assigned to that team, but there's nothing shared with that team. And so you can share things like audiences and pitch templates with individual team members that are assigned to that group. And so what we're going to do is we're going to figure out how a manager could basically write a template by creating a pitch and saving it. And then here's like a whole bunch of pre-made pitches that I've made. And once it's made, you can go into any individual one, click this icon here and click share. And this is where it asks you, who do you want to share it with? You can share it with individual reps or you can share it with groups of reps. In this case, I'm going to share it with groups. So I'm going to share it with Team X. And then I'm going to move over to audiences. Let's just say that these audiences are all also for Team X. Maybe a manager has loaded them all up in a file, right? And so you've created your broadcast audience, and here's a bunch of ones that I've pre-made. And let's say you want to assign one of those to also to Team X. And same goes with workflows, right? If you have some workflow campaigns and you also want those shared with Team X, again, it's the same process. And so long story short, all of these assets can be shared with individual reps. And once they're shared, what we're going to show you now, I'm going to log out of the manager account and I'm going to go back to Jane Doe's account. And quick recap, Jane Doe didn't have any assets shared with them. It was totally empty inside of her profile. But now that the manager, Paul Kleen, has shared those assets with Jane Doe, when she goes to pitches, she'll still have nothing in my own because she has not created a pitch of her own yet. But if she goes to shared, she'll now have this shared with her. And so this is important if you want teams or individual sales reps to always adhere to the same templates when they're doing outreach. And then under broadcast audiences, you'll see she hasn't created any of her own, but she does have some shared. And so when she goes to create a broadcast campaign, right? If I do something like test campaign, if I go to select pitch, I don't have to write my own pitch anymore. I can go to select pitch and there it is. The shared pitch is now there. So everyone on your team is now having all of the templates shared with them, and they're all going to adhere to the same copy. When I go to the test broadcast, I've already used that campaign in other demos. Let's do test broadcast 1, 2, 3. Now when you get to broadcast audience, same exact thing. I can load up my own file, or I can use one that was shared with me by my manager. And so here's that shared audience that I just gave to Jane Doe. It's all right here, and they can click select, or they can download it, edit it, and then load it back up slightly edited. Either way works fine. If you click select, it'll just bring it in exactly as is. And then I can process, and after this, you basically launch a campaign. And there's another video running through how to do that. So I'm just going to click save, and we're going to move out of it. And so long story short, that is going to show you, that shows you how you can add an individual AI sales assistant for each rep on your team, how you can get pitch templates shared with them, how you can get audiences shared with them, and how you can add them to the team using your manager account.